Today on Sports Central, we'll be going over a college football game preview and prediction on one of the big matchups coming up in the ACC in Week 11, and that's going to be between Notre Dame and Boston College. And both these teams have been having good seasons, especially Notre Dame. I mean, they're definitely a top team in the nation right now, especially coming off of a huge win like they had against Clemson last week, which Clemson being the top team in the nation at the time. That was a major win for Notre Dame moving forward. Meanwhile, for Boston College, they're actually having a pretty good season as well. No one's really talking about them, but they're actually one of the top teams in the ACC right now. They're sitting at 5-3, and they're hoping to definitely put a disturbance in Notre Dame's thoughts of making it to the college football playoff this weekend. But today we're going to be going over a full preview and prediction on this game, starting out with their team trends. Last week, Notre Dame, of course, as we all know, beat Clemson in possibly the game of the year in double overtime. 47-40 was the final score there. Then we also saw Boston College beat Syracuse by a small score, but they still won. 16-13 was the final score there. Winning streaks for both these teams. Notre Dame's currently got a 7-game winning streak as they are 7-0. They're also ranked number 2 in the nation right now. Boston College is 5-3 with a 1-game winning streak. So Boston College all around, even though they don't have a big winning streak, they've still gotten a couple of good wins. I mean, they blew out Georgia Tech a couple of weeks ago. They played it really close to Clemson. If you remember that game, that was on Halloween, and that was 1 week before. That was in week 9. Where they actually played it really close with Clemson. But then again, I mean, Clemson didn't have Trevor Lawrence there, but still, I mean, Boston College kept it close with Clemson there. And then they also had a good win over Pittsburgh a few weeks back too. So Boston College is looking pretty good heading into this match. But honestly, they're quietly one of the better teams in the ACC right now. No one's really even talking about them. But yeah, Boston College definitely is a team that's definitely in the top half of the conference right now in the ACC. I mean, I think they're number 6 or 7 right now in the conference, which really is pretty good, considering the ACC is actually a pretty good conference this season. This game's going to be on Saturday, November 14th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern in Chestnut Hill. So we'll be in Boston, where Boston College is home at. So it's going to be home for the Eagles here. Spread currently says Notre Dame by 13. ESPN FPI's got Notre Dame 86%. And then the Vegas prediction has got Notre Dame here by 9, 34-25 being the final score. And so all three sources here are saying Notre Dame, which isn't much of a surprise. I mean, Notre Dame's definitely the more skilled team coming into this game. I mean, you got Notre Dame coming off of a win to Clemson, so obviously Notre Dame should be favored in this matchup, but really the spread is not really going towards Notre Dame all that much. I mean, Boston College is only an underdog by 13 points, which really is not that much, so Notre Dame is favored, but not by a lot coming into this matchup. Here's your stat comparison for this matchup. Notre Dame's got 36 points per game, 14 points allowed, 221 pass yards a game, 227 rush yards. So Notre Dame has actually been a big rushing team so far this season, putting up nearly 230 rush yards a game. Then they got 211 pass yards allowed and then 85 rush yards allowed. So this rushing defense has been excellent for Notre Dame so far this season. Watch out for that moving forward. But as far as it goes for Boston College, they got 26 points per game, 24 points allowed. They got 260 pass yards, 106 rush yards, and then 229 pass yards allowed, and 143 rush yards allowed per game, and those are all averages. And so for Boston College on the other side, they aren't much of a rushing team so far this year. I mean, it looks like their top running back right now is Bailey, who's had 429 yards and 4 touchdowns, which isn't a lot, of course, for an ACC team. But as far as it goes for Notre Dame, and once again, this is the big rushing team. They got Williams, who's been excellent so far, to say the least. I mean, he's had 10 touchdowns already, and same thing with Ian Book. I mean, Ian Book's been great so far for this team as well, only having 1 interception through 8 touchdowns. So Ian Book's off to a great start so far this season. But all around, yeah, both teams I'd say are looking pretty good this season. Notre Dame's definitely got a much better points per game to points allowed per game ratio. But yeah, Boston College on the flip side is also looking pretty good. Here's the key points for this one. Notre Dame's coming off of a major win against Clemson, obviously. That was a huge win for Notre Dame. I mean, the conversation for the Fighting Irish over the years has been they just cannot win the big game. Like we saw back a few years ago when they were in the national championship against Alabama. I think it was either 2012 or 2013 when that game took place. But yeah, Notre Dame just got absolutely destroyed in that matchup. They just have had trouble winning their big games. And having a win like that against Clemson was extremely important. And for them to get a win like that, that is going to help them a ton moving forward. That's going to give them a whole new level of confidence. So watch out for the Fighting Irish moving forward. I mean, after you get a big win like that, I think Notre Dame is well on their way to the college football playoff, especially if they can win the ACC conference, which there is a chance that we do see Notre Dame and Clemson play each other again in the ACC championship game. I mean, it's more than likely that we're going to see that happen. And the problem is it's going to be very likely that we see Trevor Lawrence back with Clemson. So for Notre Dame, that is not a good sign because, of course, Notre Dame played Clemson, but they played Clemson's second-string quarterback. So you got to consider that as well. But Clemson all around, I mean, they're still a great team. I think Clemson should be able to really compete for that ACC title at the end of the day. But Notre Dame is going to really have to step up their game if they're going to beat Clemson with Trevor Lawrence. Like, Trevor Lawrence is a whole nother level as a quarterback. So, yeah, that's something you got to consider there. But Boston College has quietly been a top team in the ACC. We did go over that just a couple of minutes ago. Obviously, they're looking really good. And this is a crucial game for both these teams moving forward. I mean, for Boston College on one side, I mean, if you look at them, they're 5-3 right now, having a pretty good season. If they can get a win here, they'll probably put Boston College in the rankings for one. And for two, that gives them a lot of momentum moving forward because, like, Boston College, I think is a good team. They've got potential moving forward. If they could get a win here, that sets them up for a great postseason position. Meanwhile, for Notre Dame, if they can get a win here, that will position them to 8-0, which is a great record to have, especially moving into the later parts of the season, and especially for Notre Dame being a team that is that has a great chance of making it to the playoff this year. I mean, once again, they got to probably get past Clemson again if they're going to make it there, but still Notre Dame is looking great right now. I mean, this offense has been great. This defense has also been so good. Once again, we already went over those averages before, but all around, Notre Dame is looking like a team that could easily be a playoff contender. And the thing is for them moving forward is that they've just got to get past these opponents. Like, they cannot lose to Boston College and still think that they can make it to the playoffs. So, yeah, this is a crucial game moving forward for both these teams. And I think in the end, Notre Dame is going to be your winner here. I think Notre Dame ends up winning it by 11 with a final score of 35-24. And this is going to be a little bit of a close game. And I mean, hear me out here. I think Boston College is going to keep it really close, especially the start. I mean, sometimes for these big teams, after major wins like Notre Dame just had against Clemson, sometimes we do see a little bit of a hangover into the next week. And I don't think that Notre Dame is going to have that in full effect. But I think Boston College will be hanging around in the first half. We will be seeing both teams pretty close. I mean, for Notre Dame, they've probably been focusing on that Clemson game for several weeks before that game even started. They haven't really looked at Boston College yet. So, I mean, the preparation is going to be a little bit shorter for this game, I think. But Notre Dame's going to get the win here in the end, 35-24. It will be a little bit of a close game, kind of close for comfort. But then again, Boston College, they're still a good team. Once again, they're 5-3. They've got 5 wins on the season, and they're 4-3 in the conference. So, yeah, they're a pretty good team as well. You can't forget about that. But the probability here is going to be 70% towards Notre Dame. I'm pretty confident that the Fighting Irish do get the win here in the end, even though it might be a bit of a closer game. Don't be surprised if we see a close game here, but Notre Dame will get the win in the end. 35-24 will be your final score. Do let me know your thoughts and comments below, though, on this matchup. And if you enjoyed this preview, slap a like on it and subscribe as well if you're not already yet. Really upset the channel. I'd really appreciate that. But as always, thanks again for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you all later.